Leo, any thoughts, comments?
I might just point out again, the May revise just this January would completely eliminate the outstanding amount of deferrals.
Great. Well, I think we're all glad to see these deferrals finally paid down. We have questions from the committee? No? Some public comment, please.
Thank you, Jeff Baca, school business officials. Very high priority for our members to retire the deferrals, expressing support. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon. Marta Alvarez on behalf of San Diego Unified School District. I'll be brief. San Diego Unified would encourage the committee and the governor to reconsider and repaying off deferrals in 14-15 and 15-16. We believe part of the wall of debt is the mandates that are owed to school districts, $4.5 billion statewide. Both of them have different effects on school districts. Mandates would be one-time money that we need, and so it's still part of the wall of debt. We fully support that concept, but we just encourage the committee to consider doing it over 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam Amack, the Association of California School Administrators. Since you guys have higher revenues, we certainly support you paying the deferrals off right now.
Thank you.
Liz Guillen with Public Advocates, just thanking everybody for paying the deferrals off. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Sarah Lillis with Ed Voice, and also very supportive of the recommendation of paying off the deferrals, and appreciate the commitment to doing so and eliminating this unconstitutional practice that disproportionately does affect low property wealth school districts and charter schools. And Ed Voice Institute has actually done an analysis of how it's impacted individual districts, so it's on our website, but I'm also happy to share information about specific districts.
Thank you. So I think it should also be pointed out that by taking this action, we're really fulfilling the promise of Prop 30, because without Prop 30, we would not be able to do this, and that's what this was supposed to be about. So we have a motion by Senator Block, which would adopt the governor's proposal to eliminate K through 14 deferrals. Call the roll, please.
Leno?
Aye.
Nielsen?
Aye.
Anderson?
Aye.
Bell?
Aye.
Berryhill? Block?
Aye.
Corbett? Aye. Hancock?
Aye.
Jackson?
Aye.
Lou? Mitchell?
Aye.
Monning?
Aye.
Morel? Roth?
Aye.
Torres? Wyland?
11-0. Measure passes. Thank you. Page 20. Quality Education Investment Act.
I can present it. That's fine. Thomas Todd, Finance again. So the governor's budget proposes to fully pay off the settlement obligations, that were agreed to under CTA versus Schwarzenegger. So what we have here is a proposal to make the final payment of roughly $410 million. $267 million would be devoted to K-12. $48 million to community colleges, and then some savings from the program that was funded under QEIA would be used to actually make another payment towards another lawsuit, the Williams lawsuit, and so we would spend about $95 million on that.
Thank you. Can you tell us, with this repayment and final payments, are there still some funds owed to the Williams settlement? There are indeed. So with this investment, so this year we're proposing a total investment of about $188 million for Williams. Roughly 95 comes from some of the savings from the QEIA program. We're also using some one-time Prop 98 resources and cobbling that together to make the total payment of $188 million. We have paid about $338 million of the $800 million that we owed towards that settlement to date. So add the $188 million to that $338, and so
that
still
gets
hundreds of millions out there.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Questions from the committee? Any public comment? We have a motion by Senator Block to adopt the governor's proposed Quality Education Investment Act payment, and also consistent with the Prop 98 package. Call the roll, please.
Leno?
Aye.
Nielsen?
Aye.
Anderson? Aye. Bell?
Aye.
Berryhill? Block?
Aye.
Corbett? Aye. Hancock?
Aye.
Jackson? Aye. Lou? Mitchell?
Aye.
Monning? Morel? Roth?
Aye.
Torres? Wyland? 11-0.
Passes.
Measure passes 11-0. On page 21, we have the unpaid mandate claims.
So Obviously, we don't support this proposal right here because it's based on the higher revenues, but without regards to that, we do support, we have a plan to pay off the mandates over the forecast period, but given the circumstances, this piece of the wall of debt is not included in our budget package, but it's certainly something we have our eye on, and we do have a plan over the forecast period to pay it off.
Very good. Thank you. LAO?
Paul Gloszewski with the LAO. We would just encourage you, if you're going to pay down mandates, to think about how you want to pay down the mandate backlog. Typically, the way that it's done is the oldest claims are paid first. However, the last time the state paid down some of the mandate backlog for education, it took a different approach, and it basically distributed the funding on an ADA basis. The reason that the state did this is because there's large discrepancies in the number of claims that districts have on file. So it was viewed as a more equitable approach to pay off the backlog. So that's an approach that you could consider this time around as well.
Okay. Thank you. So this is to provide an additional $457 million for mandate claims repayment, and those, of course, owed to K through 14. We have some public comment, please. Help is on the way. They've got another one.
Thank you. Andrea Ball on behalf of the California School Boards Association, and we appreciate and support the allocation of funds to repay these mandate claims. Thanks.
Thank you.
Martha Alberto, San Diego Unified School District. Thank you very much, Senator Block, the Education Subcommittee, for adding mandates. That's part of the, what needs to be repaid, part of the wall of debt. Thank you to the committee as well.
See, your patience is rewarded.
Yes, and thank you for listening.
Of course, proof that we did.
Leilani Aguinaldo-Yi on behalf of the Los Angeles Unified School District. We also appreciate adding additional funds for mandate reimbursement. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, Senator Block makes the motion to provide this additional $457 million for the purpose of paying down the educational mandates. Call the roll, please.
Leno?
Aye.
Nielsen?
No.
Anderson?
Aye.
Aye. Bell?
Aye.
Berryhill? Block?
Aye.
Corbett? Aye. Hancock?
Aye.
Jackson? Aye. Liu? Mitchell?
Aye.
Monning?
Aye.
Morel? Roth?
Aye.
Torres? Wyland? 10-1.
Measure passes 10-1. Moving on to page 22, which is our Prop 98 package. We can have the LAO present this.
Yes, I'll just say that we appreciate there are many similarities here, and we appreciate that, but we cannot support the additional revenues, therefore the additional spending that's in the plan. Thank you.
Understood.
Edgar Cabral with the LAO. So the agenda has a spreadsheet that lays out all of the different components of the Senate plan, but I'll just highlight the bigger components. And you've already talked about a few of them here today. There's $550 million for well, and actually, I should stop and say, again, it's been clear through the discussions, but the Proposition 98 funding level in this package is tied to using the LAO estimates of property tax revenues and general fund revenues. And that does result in an increase in Prop 98 funding of $313 million in 13-14 and $2.2 billion in 14-15. In 13-14, those increases are used to pay down the mandate backlog. Then in 14-15, there are a number of components, some of which you've already discussed: the additional Common Core funding, additional funding for the CTE pathways. The package also shifts childcare programs that are currently non-Proposition 98 into Proposition 98, and that results also in a comparable increase in 98. It's not a change overall in spending in the budget, just in terms of whether it's classified as Prop 98 or non-98. Then after that, there is a $600 million increase in preschool and child care rates and slots. And then additionally, there is $100 million in one-time funding for professional development for childcare and preschool programs, and then a $262 million increase in community colleges compared to the governor's May revised proposal.
I know that a few years ago we had fallen as low as about $7,000 in per pupil funding. I think a year ago we were closer to about $8,000. Do you have a per pupil figure? It's above $9,000 with these funds?
I don't have the offhand. We are closer to, I think we are in the 8,000. We still haven't reached 9,000. I think just from the top of my head, we are in the 8,000, somewhere in the middle. I think to give you a sense, in the governor's May revision, there was about a 10% increase in per pupil funding from 13-14 to 14-15. This package, because it does provide additional increases in ongoing funding, like for LCFF, would be somewhat higher than that. But we can get back, provide you some.
If you could, so you think that even with the additional money that the Senate is proposing, we'll still not quite reach that 9,000?
That's my thought, just in terms of trying to remember the specific numbers, but we can go back and provide you with the specifics for your package.
And I know these numbers get a little confusing sometimes, because when you talk about per pupil funding, whether it's with federal dollars and other supplements or just general fund, is there a national average for states with general fund spending on education? Is the national average closer to around 11,500 or 12,000?
That's the number that I've seen is more closer to 11,000, but I think there are lots of various numbers that sometimes include or exclude federal funding and other things like capital. So I'm not sure exactly what the proper comparison is at this point.
But we can say with some authority that even with these additional funds, we're some thousands of dollars below a national average.
Yeah, California is still below the national average. I think this additional funding does provide, I think, substantial increases. I think we haven't seen as much. The latest data that we have for per pupil on a national basis is from 2011-12. So some of that data doesn't reflect some of the increases since, for example, the passage of Prop 30. And so I think when we get better information sort of in 12-13, we'll have a better sense of how we stand nationally. But the last year that we have available, I think unadjusted, the state was in the sort of high, around 29th or 30th in the nation.
Right. And then, of course, it's not adjusted for cost of living here in California.
That's right. That's the unadjusted number.
Right. Yes, Senator Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge that early care and education is yet another place the administration has been silent, both January and in May revised. And I think it's ironic coming off the heels of the local control funding conversation, where the administration's entire design was to focus on children who need the additional help. Clearly, the early care, the $1 billion that's been cut from the early care and education system since 2008 is a most appropriate place to start to make sure that children enter school truly ready. You know, we talk about school ready, but this is putting resources where that rhetoric ends. And I also think it's important for this body to recognize that early care and education has been included in Prop 98 funding previously. And so this is an effort to indeed make sure that local control funding formula and the children who will ultimately benefit from that really can by reinvesting in those critical early years. And I just wanted to make sure that the committee understood the Women's Caucus. This is a priority, and this is a goal that we hope that this body will share.
Thank you for your comments. Senator Jackson.
I'd just like to second that, too, particularly in light of the fact that the governor has nothing in there for this. This is so important to get our youngest children, our youngest future, our future off to a good start. And all the data today indicates without reservation or challenge that the most critical time in the development of a child's brain comes from 0 to 3. And we as a state have done very little to really make a commitment on this. This will, we believe, ultimately, as we go forward, save enormous amounts of money throughout a child's educational experience if they have that early training, that early educational opportunity. So I recognize that this is something that the governor did not include, but it is something that certainly the Women's Caucus, and I know the Pro Tem yesterday identified this issue in pre-K, the 4-year-olds. as a top priority. So it's our hope, and I know Senator Mitchell shares that with me, that going forward, this will be included to recognize that this is part of the commitment we need to make to our educational system as well as to our children. So.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Senator Block.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to point out that additional early childhood education slots and child care slots were a priority of Sub 1. I want to thank the Women's Caucus for working hard on this issue. Additionally, we put additional funds into community colleges, where we think community colleges make a key difference in the lives of our students, both in terms of full-time faculty and the ability now of colleges to hire more full-time faculty, things like increasing part-time faculty office hours, which will lead to more student success, things like increased help for EOP students, for students with disabilities. These are all issues we considered important in Sub 1. I want to point out they're all included on our chart here.
Thank you, Senator Block. Let me also thank the Women's Caucus in focusing on this. One of the things I hear most when I return to my district is concern for our infrastructure for early care and education, that it is on life support right now. They cannot operate much longer with the reduced rates that they're getting. And this is a critically important reinvestment that needs to be done now, or it may be too late. And as Senator Mitchell had said, if we're really sincere in addressing the achievement gap, we can't begin to focus in second grade, third grade, fourth grade. It has to start much earlier, because we know the gap is there even by that kindergarten year. So,
and if I may,
Senator Jackson.
Mr. Chair, all the data, as I mentioned, if you look to other countries in the world, other developed countries in the world, they have a solid early infrastructure, starting with infant care, starting with preschool. They understand the importance of this commitment, and I suggest that if we're still not spending $9,000 a year per child, assuming that that money goes into resources, teachers, programs, and so forth, we could put lots of money in, but we're not going to catch up. We're not going to do what needs to be done to create that well-trained workforce, and it does start at the earliest possible stages. So, and with the data now doing what many of us who are parents understand sort of through experience and perhaps intuitively, the earlier you can get children into the kinds of nurturing and developmental stages that are appropriate given their age, the better it is for their educational experience and society as a whole. So I want to, and yes, I want to thank our male colleagues as well for recognizing the importance. It's my hope that now in negotiations with the governor that he also will recognize how important this issue is.
Senator Jackson, underscoring what you just said, I believe among nations, we're the only industrialized country that does not have paid maternity leave. So again, we have a motion by Senator Block which adopts the Senate's Proposition 98 package. We have public comment. Yes.
Adonai Mack again with AXA. While we support your adoption of the LAO's higher revenues and a higher Prop 98 number, we would like to raise a concern about shifting child care into Proposition 98. It's unclear from the budget documents whether you're rebenching the minimum guarantee to account for that, or if you're just using the revenues to increase the guarantee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick Callum, representing Peralta, Yuba, San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles Community College District, LA College Guild. We support the governor's May revise. We just want to really particularly focus on the governor's emphasis on access, 2.75%, and the $100 million on student equity. We want to thank Senator Block for his augmentations. But there is a difference with K-12 when it comes to the STRS proposal, which frankly has huge impacts, which you are going to hear later on next year on the future K-14 education. We don't have the flexibility in community colleges. So if in the negotiations with the governor's office there is some negotiations on this and you adopt the STRS proposal, we think the higher amount prepaying, the more you prepay, the better it's going to be in the run, that you should adopt that. But Senator Block has set aside some mandate money for community colleges, and we hope you'll do that. I also want to thank Senator Leno for all the phenomenal work on San Francisco City College for those 80,000 students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa Tena with the Community College League of California. Just wanted to reiterate and thank the subcommittee, Subcommittee 1's actions on Tuesday related to the community college budget. Very supportive of the concepts that were outlined in that proposal, particularly the augmentations that were provided with the May revision, but as well the items that were stated by Senator Block, the full-time faculty obligations, the restoration for categoricals. In terms of the child care piece, I think I'd just like to underscore and note that community colleges, at 72 of our 112 community colleges, we offer child care. We offer it for students who are attending, as well as for labs for students who are learning to be practitioners. And I want to I just kind of note that hopefully, I haven't seen the language, but the community colleges will be also eligible for those resources as well.
Thank you.
Jeff Baca, school business officials, just to echo the concern expressed by Mr. Mack regarding the revitching of Proposition 98. Thank you.
Thank you.
Clarissa Dowford with Parent Voices, and I just would like to thank the committee's support for early care and education. We definitely support funding to be returned back to Prop 98. This is critical supports for families and for children. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a motion?
Leno?
Call the roll, please.
Leno?
Leno, aye.
Nielsen?
No.
Anderson?
No.
Bell?
Aye.
Block?
Aye.
Corbett? Hancock?
Aye.
Jackson?
Aye.
Liu? Mitchell?
Aye.
Monning?
Aye.
Morel? Roth?
Aye.
Torres? Wineland? It's 9-2.
Motion passes 9-2. Page 23 is a legislative proposal, and I'll ask LAO to present it, and then I'll have a few comments.
Thank you, Chair. Senators, Leah Moore with the Legislative Analyst's Office. Chapter 800, Statutes of 2013, streamlined the process for compensating people who have been exonerated after serving time or incarcerated. There's some confusion over whether this was specific only to individuals exonerated in state court or whether it also extended to federal court. This proposal would clarify that the disbursements are made for individuals who are exonerated in both federal and state court.
Thank you. So, colleagues, I have some familiarity with this as I had authored the bill which created this new chapter and statute. The legislature was actually a Republican-authored bill back in year 2000 that created a $100 per day compensation for those individuals who are literally victimized by the state of California, convicted of a crime they've later been deemed to be innocent of. And so since the creation of that $100 per day compensation, about 132 people have been exonerated, deemed to be factually innocent by the very court that had convicted them. But over the past 13 years or so, only 13 individuals have actually gotten their $100 per day. And the reason for that, which was the purpose and reason for the bill which created this new statute, was that once someone was deemed innocent by the court which convicted them, and they were released, exonerated, we then expected them to restate their case before not a judicial body, but an administrative body, the Victim Compensation Board. And imagine having been incarcerated wrongly for 20 years and then have to reconstruct your case of innocence before this board. Files would not be there, witnesses wouldn't be there. You're destitute because you've been wrongly incarcerated for the past 20 years. You'd only get $200 when you walk out of the prison door, or any parole services. You get nothing. Well, clearly this is not going to happen, and only 13 people got their money. So this new law requires that the decision by the court of factual innocence be binding upon the Board of Victim Compensation Board. So the good news is there were 4 individuals exonerated who made their case to the Victims Compensation Board just last week. And there was one other point, and I'll explained the difference between the state or federal court, which LAO's just mentioned. But there was one other issue. One of the 4 individuals was denied his compensation. And the reason was a debate over the word pecuniary in the statute. Now, pecuniary just means related to money. Nonetheless, the 4th individual who did not get his compensation was deemed by the board, as argued by the Department of Justice, not worthy of the compensation because he had been guilty and charged of another crime which led him to homelessness, and because he was homeless and unemployed, he didn't miss out on any earnings as a result of his wrongly being convicted and incarcerated by the state, which is a bizarre stretch of what pecuniary means in, I think, anybody's mind. If you take that logic of that reasoning and reverse it to someone not homeless and unemployed, but that someone, let's say, had been earning $1 million a year, and we wrongly incarcerated that person, are we going to give that person more than $100? No, it's a flat $100. Has nothing to do with what your income was or might be once you are released. It's our apology, it's our compensation for wrongly having taken your life for a year or 20 years. And so I'm going to make the suggestion that we adopt placeholder trailer bill language clarifying the statute, that our intent always was to compensate individuals wrongly convicted, irrespective of what their circumstances were prior to their conviction, and then also with regard to the state or federal court. So on that issue, the Department of Justice had interpreted the statute to mean that, yes, you were convicted in a state court, you served your time in state prison, and then you petitioned a state court for your habeas corpus, and it was denied. The law allows you to petition a federal court, and if the federal court deems you to be innocent and you are now exonerated, that also will mean you get your compensation, irrespective of which court accepts your petition for habeas corpus. So those are the 2 points I would recommend that we identify and clarify in placeholder trailer bill language. Senator Roth?
Well, right, just to make it clear, it's the state court conviction that from which you were exonerated, not
Yes.
a federal court conviction, irrespective of whether a state court or a federal court sets aside that state court.
That's correct. That's correct. Finance, do you have any comments?
We just got the concept, and so we're evaluating it.
Okay. We'll give you time to do that. I'll take a motion from Senator Monning, and if there are no other questions, we will call the roll.
Leno?
Aye.
Nielsen?
No.
Anderson? Bell?
Aye.
Berryhill? Block?
Aye.
Corbett? Hancock?
Aye.
Jackson? Liu? Mitchell? Monning? Morel? Roth? Torres? Wyland? 9-1.
The motion passes 9-1. And we'll move on to page 24. We're almost there, folks.
Just a question.
This is our CalSTRS unfunded liability. Ms. Bosler.
Yes, I'll just introduce this proposal and then turn it over to my colleague Eric Stern. But this is really one of the most significant proposals in the governor's May revision. It's the first, it's a comprehensive plan to deal with one of the significant pieces of our long-term liabilities. The CalSTRS unfunded liability is estimated to be approximately $74 billion today. And that's of our total long-term liabilities that are about $340 billion. So as you can see, this is a significant effort that will fully fund the pension over the next 30 years. And that I'll turn it over to Mr. Stern.
Eric Stern with Department of Finance. Right as Ms. Bosler said, we have a plan to eliminate the unfunded liability in about 30 years, a $74 billion unfunded liability. We're going to be beginning the additional new contributions beginning July 1st of this year. The state's contribution will be ratcheting up over the next 3 years. We're requesting about $59 million general fund in the first year. and teacher contributions. The member contributions will also be going up, facing that 2.25% of payroll increase over the next 3 years. And then on the school side, we're also calling for a 7-year phase-in of school contributions, ratcheting that up from 8.25% of payroll to 19.1% of payroll by 2020-21.
Thank you. Mr. Cisney, welcome.
Jason Cisney, LAO. First, I'll talk a little bit about the governor's proposal and then introduce the staff recommendation. The governor's plan is a bold one, and it addresses this very difficult problem that we've been talking about for a number of years now. The governor's plan on many of the key points aligns very closely to the recommendations that we've made to the legislature. It aims for full funding in about 30 years. This is a very big financial problem. Some people think that 30 years is too long. Some people think it should be longer. We think that 30 is a reasonable target to use, and it's very important for the system and for taxpayers to address these problems aggressively and as soon as we can. Teachers have a right in law to a financially sound retirement system, and taxpayers, including teachers, have an interest in getting this unfunded liability addressed as soon as possible. With regard to the staff recommendation, the Legislative Public Employee and Retirement Committees met yesterday. The chairs have forwarded their recommendations, which are summarized right after page 24 in your agenda, and we also have given you a handout that we developed that basically includes their estimates, essentially to ramp up school districts' contributions a bit more slowly in the first 3 years compared to the governor's plan, to include new language, to ensure that CalSTRS reports back at periodic intervals on success in meeting the plan's full funding objectives, and to address a technical issue with regard to the teachers' additional contributions in year one. So this is a pretty significant proposal that will affect school district finances as well as the states and teachers for decades. And above all else, it is time to address this problem.
Thank you, Mr. Cisney. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. And I appreciated the governor's January proposal that we needed to study this and then take action next year. Clearly, there was great interest in moving that forward even more quickly. And I can take no credit because I wasn't part of the negotiations, but to know that the educational community came together, school administrators, those representing educators, along with the administration, to figure out what the percentages would be, what was workable, what was doable, is a huge accomplishment. And so I had always thought we should include our unfunded liabilities for both CalPERS and CalSTRS as our wall of debt. I had read some news accounts that it was actually the shadow of the wall of debt, much larger than the debt itself, but it is our obligation, and we have every intent of being true to it, legally and morally. So I'm glad to see this happen, and with the Senate Pro Tem here, I can't pass up an opportunity to say thank you for recognizing that we can't be addressing the liabilities, unfunded liabilities, independent of the discussions that we've had in earlier weeks with regard to the rainy day fund. And so with just one adjustment of one word from allowing that rainy day fund to be able to be spent on paying down debt and unfunded liability, but that 50% must, is a really significant change and will serve the state of California very, very well in decades, if not generations to come. Any comments, colleagues? Yes, Senator Bell.
Yeah, in some quarters there was suggestion, I just like to see some comments on this. In some quarters there were suggestions that the payoff being a lot less time, like 16 years. And I'm looking at these numbers, I'm seeing the state of California is in our phase-in is going to be paying 2.8%. The employers, when it's all phased in, school districts 10.5%, teachers 2.5%. the teachers in just a few years is going to be like at $1,600 or so. If we had to pay this off in half the time, what kind of numbers would we see for some proposal like that? Or did you look at that? What are we looking at if we took that idea? What percentage of payroll would we have to put aside for this?
I don't have the data in front of me right now, but obviously it's like paying off a mortgage on your house. If you pay it off in 20 years rather than 30 years, the savings would be significant, but the cost of doing that, the payments would have to be extremely higher.
So that's why I'm asking. Like right now we're asking 10.5% or 10.85% in 2020. So what would it be if we did it in 15 or 16 years or half the time? It'd be much higher, like a much higher percentage.
Right. Again, yeah, I don't have the data on that, but I mean the conversation that we're having now about about the impact on schools and how quickly or slowly to phase that in over the next 7 years, I think speaks to sort of the sensitivity of how much we can actually take on. And we felt that a 30-year plan was really going to be the most appropriate way to balance the other budget priorities that we have.
So without affecting the basic purpose of the school district, which is education and of course the teacher salaries, this was the best basic compromise. And our LAO tweaked it a little bit, but it's kind of, the two plans are kind of close. So I'd be interested in my constituents. I hear, well, why don't you require this to be paid off? This columnist keeps writing articles in my newspaper about it. I don't know what to say about it, but it's like pay it off, but then there's no room left for the kids. So I'd like to know what those numbers are.
Yeah, we can definitely get you the data points on that.
There are lots of data that have been looked at over the last few years of studying this problem. Many actuaries would say that a shorter time period of payoff would be appropriate. One of the ways that they look at that is thinking about the average life of a career of the teachers now in your system. How many years is the average teacher going to be keeping working before they end their career? Yeah. And that is less than 30 years. But as Mr. Stern was pointing out, the cost of doing it that quickly would be to take even more of the funding increases for schools that are expected over the coming years and to devote it to a quicker paydown, or alternatively, to take that money out of the rest of the state budget, out of the non-education part of the state budget. So those are choices the legislature can make, but they come with trade-offs that could be quite significant for school districts or for other state programs.
Yeah, I think that's very important to note.
Senator Block.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, for reasons I mentioned earlier, just to repeat because it's appropriate again now, with school districts having met all spring and met with stakeholders, parents, teachers, other groups, to plan their budget that starts on July 1st, it's critical that the money they anticipated back in January actually be available to them to pay their costs and obligations. Now that there's this new obligation that they didn't expect, I think that the plan that was suggested by the Committee on Public Employment and Retirement, which actually decreases the amount in the first few years from the governor's proposal, is critical to be adopted. So I would urge the committee to go along with the proposal, which reduces that amount and is really the fair thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Districts have a right to get what they had anticipated, reasonably anticipated in January. None of them anticipated the additional obligation. Again, it is, commending the governor. It's important that we start paying down this debt, and the plan that came out of the Senate committee will pay down this debt. It just is a more reasonable way to start with lower first couple of years of payment.
Senator Roth.
I just wanted to note, I'd note in the material that there's some reference to trailer bill language and reporting requirements on the implementation of this proposal. It's not the right time to talk about it, but I'd like to see some dialogue next year from administration and legislature about whether STIR's system is appropriately organized to monitor this and also future contribution rates. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Jackson.
Thank you. Keeping in mind that teachers do not get Social Security, this is it for them. I'm not sure I understand why this happened, but it is the case. So for so many of our teachers, particularly if they commit their whole careers to teaching, this is all they come up with. So I have a couple questions and for clarification. As I understand it, this proposal requires that both the school district and the teacher start contributing more, and that those who start are young teachers, the ones coming into the profession now, are going to be expected to pay more into their retirements. Is that accurate?
Correct, right. Everyone will be contributing more.
And the numbers that we use to anticipate paying off this obligation are based upon some kind of anticipated rate of return for CalSTRS. Is that right? What is that rate of return?
Sure. So the funding model is based on assumptions that CalSTRS uses to calculate the liabilities and the pay down on the liabilities, and that CalSTRS, the board has adopted a 7.5% investment assumption.
And if I'm not mistaken, part of the reason that the hole in this is as big as it is because of the collapse of the market in 2008. Is that?
It's definitely one of the factors. Correct.
So when you think about it, we're making our teachers pay because Wall Street ran amok in 2008, and those folks are doing just fine now, and we're asking our teachers and our schools and ultimately the taxpayer to cover those costs associated with at least a good portion of the shortfall because of the manipulations in the market back in the games that were played in the stock market. Is that an accurate statement?
I think all pension systems are funded, have an investment portfolio that has risks associated with it, and that's one of the functions of how the funding works with the backstop that public employers have by providing those benefits, is that on occasion course corrections will become necessary.
Which is a polite way of saying that they ripped us off on Wall Street. Now there's a risk, but my point is this. Wall Street ran amok, and I think there are a lot of us, myself included, who are pretty upset that they're just fine now, and we're going to ask our teachers and our schools and our kids and everybody else to pay this down. I don't know that we have a choice. What do we have in the system, if anything, to protect us so that in the future, if we get gamed by Wall Street yet again, and I suspect that will happen one way or the other, do we have anything built in to protect us so that if they start gaming us again and we see we're operating on a 7.5% return model, which doesn't, course corrections, are we expecting to get ripped off again? Is that built into this? And if not, what can we do to try to protect ourselves so that we don't get ripped off again and end up having ultimately the taxpayer and our children pay for this?
So I don't think there's anything specifically that can protect us against that completely. But one of the reasons why, we built to 100% funding, some suggested less, was because we know that there is uncertainty in the stock market, in the markets. And so really, you have to plan for that 100% funding level because sometimes you may not even end up reaching that, especially the way the STRS program is currently structured, where the employer contributions are not able to be adjusted like in the PERS system. So that has been another thing that has contributed to the growing liability.